Hey, Jackie,
Hey, darling.
how are you?
Good. It's exciting to be doing our podcast. I love this. I'm looking forward to this every friggin' day.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's make sure we introduce for all of those people that don't know you,
Yeah.
Jackie Somerville, best-selling author, creator of a one-woman show that toured all of North America, and lots of other things, including business coach, personal coach, lifestyle coach, sex coach.
Relationship coach.
Well, I was using everything, and quite big on OnlyFans.
What do you mean quite? Yes, I'm one of the top OnlyFans creators. And yeah, it's really fun and wonderful and amazing. Hey, did you see my Instagram post today?
I don't think I have. Oh, wait, is that the one on the unkind person?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I did take a quick look at that.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, this for everybody who follows me on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and who used to follow me on TikTok, and I'm now banned on there, and you're going to find out all those juicy details of why soon. This is my best friend of almost 30 years, Chris, and the man behind the camera, the one who's always bringing out the naughty in me.
Yeah, it's much easier behind the camera, I have to tell you.
No, darling, you're a natural.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Anyway,
Hey Jackies are
yeah.
pretty big, right? We've had so many viral videos, and I think the largest Instagram one was 17.8 million views.
Is that what it
And you
is?
have
Yeah, I don't
and you
even
have about
know.
120,000 followers on Instagram and TikTok. And we can talk about that story. TikTok, we started just over a year ago in Washington, and the first video went viral. It had 12 million views in a very short time. You had 150 or 68,000 followers and over 568,000 likes, and then they banned you.
Yeah. That's a devilish laugh. Yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, that thing went so viral so quickly. But anyway, a lot of my followers did go over to Instagram and find me there. So
And
yeah,
Facebook as well.
and Facebook,
Um, I,
yeah.
I think one of the funny
Oh,
stories.
we just
I'm
got the
sorry,
ceiling.
sorry. This is not a perfect setup. I'm at a friend's house. I'll give you that story too. But one thing I should just say to everyone that is funny, and Jackie and I have been dear friends, and I think when you're dear friends, you go through everything. You go through ups and downs. You go through tons of life lessons. You can get pissed off at each other. We can fight with each other, but you also, I think, generally always in my heart want the best for her and always am very protective. And when we posted the first TikTok, I knew nothing about TikTok. I'd never been on TikTok. We filmed it catching her in an auditorium, and we should pull the video into this one as well, and caught her changing. And this is who Jackie is. She's been like that all of her life. And I said, Jackie, you should go to the washroom. And she's like, oh no, it's too far away. It's like a hotel, and it's and so I'm like, I'm
Dirty
gonna film this.
floors.
Yeah, exactly. So she changes after she's just presented to hundreds of women. It was very funny. But we posted it, and then we went for dinner. She stepped away, and I looked at it. I posted it about 2 hours ago, and there was not one view. And I thought, Chris, don't ever mention this again. We'll pretend it never happened. We won't even talk about TikTok. I don't want to make her think that it. So I was like, nothing. I'll never talk about it again. We had dinner. I never mentioned it. She didn't ask, so it was all very funny. But the next morning, and we were sharing a room, a beautiful suite, actually. She's not in bed. She's gone. She's not in the room. And I look on TikTok, and there were 220,000 views. And then it just skyrocketed from there. Like every moment, like I think later that same day, we posted a video of you on TikTok congratulating that you had 40,000 followers. Like this within hours. And we thought, oh, this must happen to a lot of people. And it's only now that we realize it's not so unusual. It's not so usual to have so many viral videos.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we've got some secret sauce, some spicy things going on, darling. I mean, we're a good
Well, you
team.
always keep it spicy, that's for sure. And the other thing we should say is that, most of the Hey Jackies, like 99% of them, it's like one take, just happened, like that's it. There's no planning, there's no anything. It's just moments in life.
I know. I love
So
it when people say, "Oh, this is so planned."
yeah, so
Like,
so contrived. And I'm like,
so
if
freaking not.
only we were that strategic, it would be great, but we're not.
We would have a video a day if we were good at strategizing. It's like,
Exactly.
I mean, that one just happened. It was so amazing. And people have said, "Oh, can you set plans?" And it's so weird, the shit that we get. But anyway, and then another guy said, "Oh, it's so obvious there's a green screen." I'm like, I don't even know how to use a green screen.
Yeah, if we had a green screen, things would be a lot easier. No, we have to like go out and actually do it. And that's one of our issues, is that we don't live in the same city. So to get together to film and stuff is sometimes difficult. So one of the
Yeah.
things we thought we would do is, create a podcast that is kind of Jackie and I just being ourselves and talking as we do all the time. And because we think we're hilarious. So we thought that we would bring that up, find out if anyone else thinks we're funny.
But what was funny about that night in Washington was that my business partner at the time was having a medical emergency, like life and death. And so I was completely not even aware that we had this TikTok video. Like, it was so far removed from my realm of thinking or life at the time that that I didn't even go there. I mean, I was preoccupied with something else, which I also think is, I mean, I've got such spiritual beliefs, and over time in this podcast, I know I'm going to discuss those because it's a huge part of who I am. And some people think it's contradictory to OnlyFans and being supposedly naughty and talking about sex and all of that. But to me, it's all, completely makes sense. But when we are not attached to something and just kind of like whatever, that's often when things turn out. It's like people who are so desperate to get in a relationship or desperate to fix something or desperate, they block it because their desperation blocks it. And so that night I was so unaware of anything going on. And so it kind of makes sense to me when I think about what I know spiritually, that it all just kind of imploded. Exploded is the word, without me even being, remotely interested in it. And the next day I'm downstairs at 5 o'clock in the morning in the St. Regis lobby. I've got my headphones in and I'm meditating in the dark, and just meditating on her life and trusting that she was going to survive what she was going through and everything else. And then I come out of my meditation to see your thing, like, where the hell are you? You have hundreds of thousands of views. This thing is going crazy.
It was really funny because it just kept blowing up, and like the view, and it was like so fast you couldn't even like keep up. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm feeling a little drunk already because we were having some technical difficulties getting this thing off the ground. So I was drinking.
You say just to be clear, I had no technical difficulties whatsoever.
Well, I'm doing the setup, darling.
I know. What are you wearing? That's a plunging neckline.
Yeah, well, I'm wearing a silk robe today. I decided to wear a little silk thing with
the camera has to come down a little bit more. Like the camera's like, a little high.
You're a little bustier, like.
Oh, there you go. So there.
Oh, yeah.
That's quite an outfit.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
So
I'm all about being sexy.
I've always said that. Tell me about your weekend.
It was a good weekend. My virile boyfriend and I had time for sex. Of course we did. We played outside in the sun.
Isn't that what your whole weekend is about usually?
Not enough for him, apparently, but yes.
Oh my God, you made that sound like an afterthought, and we know that's like the primary focus, but okay.
Well, you know what? I'm so during the week, I have my religious things I need to do, my reading and my meditating and my exercise and everything else. So the poor guy, he gets shut out during the week, other than before dinner when I've had a cocktail and I'm sort of hungry. And that's when I love it the most. He loves the early mornings. And so he gets that on weekends. And during the week, it has to be cocktail, a little drunk, before I eat food, before I cook. What?
It sounded like you say cocktail drugs. Like you have to enunciate very clearly on this because you're giving everyone the wrong idea.
A little
All she does
drunk.
is drink vodka, no drugs.
But one of the things that we do sometimes is on a Friday or Saturday night when I'm cooking is that in the middle of cooking, he'll be like, is it going to get spoiled if we go and do it now? Or we'll just do it on the kitchen table or on the floor. And I'll turn the oven off and just go, okay, it's going to be fine. Because it's my favorite thing before we eat. I don't like doing it after we eat. We're all like soporific and everything else. But when I'm hungry, then I'm horny as well. It's great.
Wow.
So if people are struggling to
So
be
your
horny, maybe they're
recommendation,
eating too much.
right? And maybe to your point, you're finding opportunities when most people think, "Oh, I have to finish cooking dinner." You're actually
Yeah.
saying, "Put the dinner on hold and like have some fun time."
Exactly right. We have this like blanket that we use wherever we are on the floor, whatever, and it's just go time. And then we go back to dinner because then
You
we're
have a
really
blanket
on.
for the floor.
Yeah, we have a sex
So you have a
blanket.
sex blanket.
We do.
Wow. Well, why aren't we talking about that as a product to market? An official sex blanket. We just have to figure out what the difference of that would be with a regular blanket.
Well, I just think if you have big like sex blanket written on it, it's going to be kind of fun and amazing and different, and it'll make a great gift, especially for a
Yes.
guy. Can you imagine a woman giving her guy a
Right.
sex blanket for his like Valentine's gift?
Yeah. And the rule could be that anytime you throw down the blanket, sex.
Well, and the other thing you could do is you could have a pocket in the side for the lube and a
Yeah.
pocket with like Kleenex or whatever on the other side. Because when you get up,
Right.
there's like things to clean up.
Yeah, that's like now we're thinking here. And then for the gay version, could also have a separate a pocket for poppers.
What?
Oh my God, you don't know what poppers are?
Poppers?
How
No,
long have we
don't.
been friends? Are you serious?
Nearly 30 years. But there's been most of those years you never wanted to talk to me about sex. This is like a new thing.
You should know about poppers. Poppers are something, it doesn't actually do anything for me, but people I've been with, they use it comes in a little bottle. You buy it at like, where you would buy your sex toys. And I think it was originally something to use for cleaning records, vinyl, and it's like a chemical smell. But supposedly what happens is it gives people like a little bit of a high, but it also relaxes certain muscles.
Oh, so you put it up there.
No. This trust me, ladies and guy, whoever's watching, she's normally very knowledgeable and knows about everything. This is a first for me, so just give her a break. No, you inhale it, hold it
Oh,
in, and
oh,
then it relaxes certain muscles lower down.
oh. So
So
what
it's
do you look for when you go to purchase it, and where do you buy it?
Well, you buy it at a sex store, like where you buy your sex toys, because
Okay.
you could give a tour of your sex toys, and you would just say, "Where are your poppers?" And like they
Oh,
all have them, and they don't. It doesn't say poppers on. They always have some name or something, but they're little jars of liquid, and you take a thing and you sniff both sides. And some people go crazy for them. Other people, it doesn't have an effect. It doesn't, give me any kind of great pleasure. But a lot of people go crazy for it. So
well,
to
that's great for
to
straight sex
extend
too, though.
well, especially like specifically anal, right? Because it relaxes your muscle back there. So yeah, it would be. It's been obviously, especially since we're talking and you hadn't heard of it, it's much more of a gay thing than a straight thing.
Yeah, but that's just because straight people don't like to talk about anal. I mean, there's lots of guys ask for it, but that's sort of where it
Yeah.
ends. It's very rare for people to have the conversation because people are very squeamish, very scared, very afraid of being judged. But there is barely a man that I have met in the last 20 years or let's say 15 maybe, who hasn't been into it and wanted it.
It's funny you say that because I remember maybe it was 2 years ago taking a friend's kid for dinner, and the kid, 25-year-old, and nice, great kid, good kid. and he was talking about pegging. And I
Yeah.
was like, what's pegging? Just like you are with poppers, what's
Yeah.
pegging?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. And I guess it's very big in the straight world, especially the younger generation, because there's no arguing that your butt is, filled with nerve endings, right? It's very sensitive both in men and women. So he was saying that it was very big in university, and everyone talked about it and stuff, that, straight guys were wanting their girlfriends to peg them with a dildo.
Yeah, but it's not only the nerve endings in the butt, it's also the prostate, right?
Right. Yeah, but I guess a woman doesn't have a prostate.
No, but I mean, the woman is pegging the man. So
Yeah,
he's the one
exactly. I was just
who's
being
having it
that
hit.
was my attempt at humor. Yeah, 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 exactly. So yeah, the men have the prostate and the thing. But what I found interesting, I think, to your point, and we've talked about this so often, is that there's stigmas attached, and it was interesting for me to hear him, and it was kind of like, well, that stigma wasn't there. It was actually cool to get pegged by your girlfriend and feel that sensation and pleasure.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, I think, on my OnlyFans page. I pegging is not my thing, because I don't ever want to be dominant to my man. That just goes
Right.
against who I am.
Right.
And I feel like I'm a feminine woman, and I want to be the female in the sex act. For whatever reason, that's just who I
Yeah.
am. And so the last
Right.
thing I want to do, that would be such a turn off for me if I had to strap something on and pretend to be a guy. Like, I couldn't do it. It's not, it's I don't want to do it.
Right.
So so that's
Yeah. Well,
something
with
that,
those breasts on you, it's going to be hard to pretend for you to be a guy. But
luckily,
I guess some women must find it interesting or don't mind trying it, or that
yeah,
kind of thing,
maybe. And
especially if their man's interested.
yeah,
Your man's
exactly.
not interested, so
No,
like
thank
you
God
don't have to
he's
worry about
not.
it.
He's not. Yeah. Mind you, I think he's also very sensitive to to how he sort of navigates my likes and stuff. Like, I don't think he wants to make too many demands on things that I don't. He has this big fantasy. He might not let me, like, he might want me to edit this out, but his big fantasy is that I wake him up early in the morning with a blowjob. Like, just I don't wake him up before, I wake him up with my mouth around his cock. And every now and again, he reminds me that we're a few years into our relationship and it hasn't happened yet.
But in all seriousness, why wouldn't that happen? Why wouldn't that be the easiest thing for you to do and make happen? Why wouldn't you make that
because I mean,
happen?
yes, darling, it's a good question. But it's because first thing in the morning, I just want my coffee. I don't want a dick in my mouth. Like, it's just, it's going to have to be for his birthday or something special, because I'm going to have to really make a concerted effort. Like, oh my God, Jacqueline, you have to get up, and that's what you want this morning, not your coffee.
Well, I'm sorry. Why can't you have both? Could you not like have your cup of coffee and then like, go back and forth? Why is it like one or the other? Let's have all of it and make a fantasy come true.
Yeah, God love him. I do. It's in the back of my mind. It's just never in the front of my mind when I wake up. I need to make a note
the problem.
to myself.
It needs to be right in front of you. Like, that's the whole point. It's got to be right in front of you.
Yeah, I got to make a note to myself so that I do it. Oh my God.
Do you remember in Toronto years and years ago, I sent you that one for a facial, and she used to do those ones that they put a rubber mask and it literally felt like you were going to die inside the mask. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Maybe she didn't give that to you, but you remember the lady, right? Because she sold you all the product. She was that cute little French woman, but every time she's like, oh, you're dehydrated, you have this, and you'd walk out with 20 products.
You know what? I have to say, I friggin' hate facials when they tell you what's wrong with you. I'm like, I didn't come here to be told that I've been a bad, caretaker of my skin. And in fact, and they always say, how much water do you drink? I drink more water than any other human on the planet. So that drives me completely nuts. And and then they're like, oh, it's dehydrated. And the one woman goes, oh, well, you scared? I said, do you know that I'm 55? This was like 3 years ago. Do you know that I'm 55? She goes, oh, I mean, she was thinking that I was 40 or something. And that, no, for 55, like, fuck it, I have a good skin. And so it is funny how they all sort of get on their little, like, oh, you need this and you need that and you need the next thing. I'm like, no, actually, I don't. I take good care of my skin.
But they're trying to sell something, right?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
like us
yeah.
trying to sell the sex blanket. We'll be the same way. Oh, you need this or you're not gonna have good sex.
No, I think we'll more sell it as a fun gift
Oh, okay.
and something that sparks. Because look, I mean, I think here's the big reason behind my brand and my existence, I think, is to inspire people to take care of that part of their lives and to have sex and to really nurture that element of their relationship. I think, I was just reading an article about Robbie Williams. He's a famous British pop star and he's 49 now. And they did an article, I think it was like in The Guardian or something, about the fact that he's been talking about his sex life with his wife of 13 years. And he goes, everybody knows that there's no sex after marriage, he said, musing that stopping taking testosterone was probably partly responsible for his drop in libido. And he continues. He said, sometimes he and his wife will she'll turn to me on the sofa and say, should we have sex? And I'm sitting there eating a tangerine and just sort of shrug. And then the article goes on to say, like, it's normal and so on, that you have waxing and waning in your sex life in a relationship. And that's, of course, it's normal. There's going to be times, but I always say that you need to prioritize it, because it's so easy to let other things come in and take priority, especially when you've got busy lives and people have children. I don't know how people who have jobs and children and responsibilities and stuff do it, quite honestly. I think it's very difficult, which means you have to prioritize it, because I think it's so crucial to a relationship. It's the one thing that distinguishes the relationship with your romantic partner from your relationship with all the other people that you love in your life, right? Like, you love your kids, you love your mother, you love your cousins, your friends, but that's the thing that differentiates this relationship, and it strengthens it. There's all those amazing hormonal releases, chemical releases that happen as a result that bond us to one another. And it is in the life that we have subscribed to in this world. It is something that gets put on the back burner, and the relationship suffers as a result of it.
And I know you've had a lot of coaching with women that they need help. And the thing is, it's a two-way street, right? Like, two people have to align, because sometimes it's the woman, sometimes it's the man, or guy. Like, it is something that can affect one person, and the other person can be the exact opposite. And you've got to figure out a way to deal with it, or the relationship's not going to last. We both know that, right? I think it's hard. And maybe it'll last, but it's not going to be a happy one, right? Like, at the end of the day, that intimacy and that connection, as you say, it is about having that. If you don't have it, it makes everything else 10 times more difficult, right? It makes an argument more difficult, makes finding things in common, it makes not being pissed off with the other person hard. Like, you've always said it's a bigger deal, and you joke that I hardly talk about sex, and it was not as big a deal for me. And I think as I've matured and gotten older, I think about it differently now.
Yeah.
Mostly based on you and your way of talking and thinking about it, and projecting sex all the time.
Well, thanks, darling. But I think it's also based on your experience, that it was miserable being in a relationship where that wasn't a part of it, right? And I've experienced that too. It was miserable. It is interesting you say that it goes both ways sometimes, and I hear from both men and women. So it's interesting that I have worked with a lot of women in their 50s and 60s who are married or in partnerships with men of the same age. And their beef is that they don't get enough sex. And yet everybody thinks it's the other way around. And it is a lot of the time. I have a lot of men who are my OnlyFans fans who reach out to me saying, what do I do? I feel guilty for following you, but you're the ultimate woman that I fantasize about. I love my wife or my partner, but we're just not having any sex. It's a big friggin' deal.
Yeah.
And it's like, I
Yeah.
forget who did the quote, but I mean, there is a quote, and I'm paraphrasing, that sex and money are so critical, you don't really notice them that much until you don't have it, right? So if you're not getting any sex, it becomes a huge deal. If you don't have any money, it's a huge deal. And so, you know, people say sex is not important. Tell that to the person who's not getting any. And so it's interesting that, and there's so many reasons. Everybody says, well, why doesn't she want it anymore? Or why is he not? There's so many reasons. That's the thing. It's not one thing. And so it's very custom to the couple. But there are some
but what I find interesting,
things that go through, some commonalities.
Yeah, and I love that about your passion for that, and your not being afraid to share with women and men your stories and your ideas. But you know, what I find so interesting is that most of the time it seems like no one talks about it. So instead of looking for a solution, because I think, you know, that's one of the things I've learned from you, is that, you know, you should have your blood tested if you're a guy. Like, are your testosterone levels low? Are your you know, are you as fit as you can? Like, there's so many things. Same with women, right? If you're off chemically on your balancing of testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, like all of those things, it can have a huge effect, and it can be changed like this. But instead of dealing with it, or, you know, seeking help, most people just stop talking about it. And I think that is something that you've taught me, is that, you know, you do have to communicate within a relationship. So you have to find out what the needs and wants and passion, but also recognize that there's multiple layers and different causes of why you maybe aren't having sex. One could be communication. Two could be actually medical issues that you can easily fix. Maybe some are more difficult, but then, you know, you can also, again, what you've taught me is you can find other ways for intimacy as well, right? Just, you can't let that slide, or you're putting the relationship on not really fair footing, right? Because you're taking out so much of a piece that could bring strength to it.
Yeah, definitely. I think also it's an understanding of the fact that there are certain realities, and the one is that women need to feel like they're the turn on, right? In order to be turned on. If a woman doesn't feel that she's sexy and beautiful, and that you find her sexy and beautiful, she's not going to be turned on. So a lot of men don't understand that about a woman, that if she's not feeling so, and it's so you can see how in a traditional marriage or family life situation, how easily that can go downhill. The woman is stressed to the teeth. She's got the kids, she's cooking, she's cleaning, she's not feeling sexy at all. Very difficult to feel sexy in those situations. And because she's not feeling sexy, she's not feeling like she's the turn on, therefore she's not feeling like sex. And so I always say to the guys that I'm counseling, make sure that she feels beautiful, that you tell her that she's beautiful, that you tell her that she's sexy and that you're attracted to her, because that in turn is going to make her want sex and want you. It's very interesting. And then on the flip side, a lot of the guys who are struggling with this don't understand that women go through biological changes that happen to lesser degrees in men, right? When estrogen falls off a cliff, the ramifications for a woman are very drastic, and they don't really understand that. And the other thing is that both people, whether you're a man or a woman in a gay or straight relationship, don't understand that a lot of the time that it is perfectly natural that we are all attracted to the new thing, that the same old gets same old very fast, and that we are no longer interested. And so the job is to keep it exciting as best we can. And that requires an open mind. And this is a whole, I'm sure we're going to discuss this a whole lot more over time. How can one open one's mind, do more exciting things within a relationship? You cannot stick to old-fashioned things that you consider moral and remain excited in a relationship. So, for example, Women get upset a lot of the time when a man watches porn and jerks off on his own when he's in a relationship with them. Drop that shit. If your guy goes and has a fantasy with a different person, man, woman, whatever it is, for a little while on porn, do not take it personally. Embrace it. And it's only if you have a freak out about it that he's going to go underground and do it more, and your sex life is going to be worse. If you utilize it cleverly, it's only going to enhance your sex life, right? I mean, I remember walking in on my guy jerking off and to his phone, and he was going for it, and I was like, oh, I interrupted. And he's like, what? No. I said, you're jerking off. And he's like, I said, you're watching porn and you're jerking off. He goes, no, I'm not. I'm going, no, my darling, don't deny it. I know you're doing it and it's cool. It's fine. It's wonderful. I said, tell me. I bet you she's a brunette and she's giving one hell of a blowjob. And then he just started to laugh. And he said, you know me so well. And I said, I know. I said, go back to what you're doing. When you're finished, we'll talk about whatever I came in here for. And I closed the door and stuff. And he laughed. It was so great because you can't take that shit personally. You have to be open-minded and you have to be bigger than that. And it's only then that a long-term relationship can stay spicy and wonderful. It's like watching porn together, going to strip clubs together. There's so many things people can do, but closed-mindedness
and talking about fantasies
and prudishness, you kill it.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that couples need to be able to talk about their fantasies. I find it very interesting that you brought up the masturbation thing, because I remember years ago friends, and they were both cool, but they were young parents, they had 3 kids, and she said something about, if you think I can have sex every time he's horny, I think he was 35, again, young parents, that I don't have time for it, so I depend on him jerking off sometimes over porn. But they had the open communication, right? Like, it comes down to that. And then extending that forward to what you said, it's also, to me, I think, which I wasn't ever in the past capable of, but I think we can all learn and get better, is to be able to tell your deepest fantasies to the other person, right? But we don't do that as society. We're taught that that's not a good thing. And we've had that conversation before. Upbringing, the way parents are, the way we think about it. And not everyone has the confidence or the ability to have real conversations like that. And I think, to your point, which you just made me think of here, is that those can continuously change. We change as people. Our taste in art changes, our taste in everything. Sex will develop too, and so you have to keep sharing what's the new fantasy, what's the new thing that turns you on. But I don't think couples have those conversations often.
Right. No, I don't think they do. But I do also think that there's some fantasies that will always remain private, because the reason why we don't share them is because the majority of us fantasize about some pretty wild things. Women fantasize about a lot wilder things than anybody is prepared to admit. And I'm sure men do too, I'm not sure, but women do. And there are things I say to my guy, he always wants to know what I'm thinking about when I'm like, turning myself on or whatever. And I just give him a very general overview. I don't give him specifics, because he says, well, I want to act out your fantasies. And I'm like, no, because they're so crazy. I don't want them in real life.
But you don't think you could talk to him about that and say, look, we can't recreate it, but this is what I'm thinking. You think he'll judge you?
No, that's not why. I don't. No, it's not because I think he'll judge me. I think because he tries to enact the fantasy.
So
he thinks that'll please me.
So hypothetically, let's say you're turned on by gangbangs. You're worried he's going to get 10 guys over.
Oh, darling, that's not hypothetical at all.
But you're worried if you, but you've told him about that, and he hasn't invited 10 guys over for a beer and like fun with you.
No, well, he knows that I'm not open to it, but because that remains a fantasy. It's not as though I want
But you
that,
shared
because
it.
I shared
But
it,
you
but I
shared
don't
it.
want to open that can of worms in reality in our relationship, because I know that it wouldn't be good for our relationship. And I am a loyal person in a monogamous relationship.
Right.
And so yeah, no, I think that some of the finer details I keep to myself, but he knows the general stuff. He knows that I like it rough in my fantasy, but I don't always want it rough in real life at all. Not at all. I like, it to be more gentle in reality. So there are two different things. It's, a fantasy does not necessarily need to be acted out, or we don't necessarily want it to be acted out. It is just
Interesting.
a mind movie, as it were.
Interesting. Wow. Because I was thinking that, way to keep the sex life exciting is to share your fantasies with your
It
lover.
is. No, it is. But I'm just saying, up to a point, if you are crazy like me.
That's what I find interesting. But I don't. You say you're crazy, but I think everyone has fantasies. But it's interesting to have two takes on it, because I think I was of the opinion that if you can communicate it and be open, communicate it, and I think you're giving kind of that's good, but there may be something that you're not going to share.
Yeah. This is a
Yeah.
mystery. I remember Angela Lansbury being interviewed once, obviously decades ago.
Okay,
And
well, it wasn't about sex, I'm sure. I'm sure she
no,
wasn't having.
they asked her the key to her long Hollywood marriage. And her answer
Oh,
was, never let him see you struggling into your pantyhose. And that was so incredible, because that was all about keeping the mystery alive. Being a sexual being, like when my guy is getting too real with me, I don't want to hear the farting and the burping and all that stuff, because you are a sexual being. Either I am your sexual partner or I'm your bro, and don't cross those lines. So and so it was the same, that so I got what she was saying. Keep the mystery alive. Make sure that you go and get dressed in your own place, unless you're dressing in a very sexy, sultry way, which, let's face it, in the real world only happens in movies. In our lives, we are like struggling in the pantyhose and like hiking up the jeans and doing there's a lot that goes into popping out like we do when we go out for dinner or whatever. And it's not always elegant. And so her point was, and I remember meeting my lover in Las Vegas for a clandestine weekend. And he finished showering and got dressed, and he went downstairs to gamble. We're staying at the Bellagio. And he said to me, he said, I'm going to leave you to do your thing, give you time and space to do your thing. And I thought, God, he really gets it. It was so amazing. So we'd been banging ourselves senseless before we went, he went and showered and stuff. It wasn't as though we hadn't had all of that. It was so amazing. And then he's like, showered, he got changed, and off he went, because a man takes 10 minutes. And I got all dolled up, and I never forget, I was wearing this tight, body conscious red dress, just hugging everything, black stilettos, these diamond chandelier earrings, and this like black crocodile clutch. And I walked through the casino, and I'll never forget all the eyes just turning and looking at me. And I walked up to our table, and he was like, and all the guys around the table, their jaws were on the floor. And he just said, oh, sensational. And I knew that I did, but I had all that time and anything to put all of that into it, to get myself to the point where I was the turn on, back to my point earlier about a woman needs to be the turn on. So I had the time and the space and everything to keep that mystery alive and to create that. So when I walked into that casino, I was truly the sexiest thing there, because that's what I was vibrating in that consciousness. to go into my woo-woo world. And it was a unforgettable moment in my life that I'll never forget it. So keep the mystery alive. And as per Angela Lansbury, never let him see you struggle into your pantyhose. And I want men to get that too. Be your sexual partner's sexual partner. Don't expect them to be turned on by a guy who's down on his luck, dour, feeling negative, complaining or whatever. That's just not a turn on. It's not a turn on.
For anyone in any way. Yeah.
No, so this whole thing of, letting it all hang out and, well, this is reality, that's bullshit. If you want to live in reality, your marriage is either not going to last or it's going to be miserable. You have to keep the mystery alive.
It's funny, I would have never thought that you would be quoting something Angela Lansbury said when we're talking about sex. But did you get Heart to Heart in South Africa? Did you ever see the show Heart to Heart?
Yes, we did, and I know that's
so
a favorite.
When you say that, it actually makes me think that's exactly what Jonathan and Jennifer's relationship was like on TV, right? The whole time it was about sexy mystery, literally to the point where they're solving crimes. But their sex life and their relationship was all about that.
Yes, because she was this bombshell. Like she was a bombshell.
Yeah.
And a man is attracted to a bombshell.
And he was like suave and cool and always looked great and never let himself go. And
yes, exactly right. Exactly right. We have to make an effort in these things.
Yeah.
And we have to know what humans find attractive. And what I find so interesting is in our culture, we often make it wrong. Well, it shouldn't be about looks, and it shouldn't be, you should love me for who I am. And when I'm all letting it all hang out, and, haven't shaved my legs and I'm like, whatever. No, actually not. When you look in the animal kingdom and you find the preening and the pruning and the beauty, especially in birds, of the male, it's quite incredible. In the animal kingdom, they haven't made it wrong to be gorgeous and to flirt and to overtly attract your mate. And we, over time, have become so evolved that we're evolving ourselves out of existence and out of one of the greatest pleasures of life, which is the sexual pleasure and our sexual energy and all of that. And so I don't think we have to look very far. I always think when people say, oh, it's not all about looks, I always think of a peacock and I go, well, shit, it comes into it a lot. It really does. And we need to make that effort.
And you've always been a proponent of flirting and, not wanting society to go so far away from, inappropriate like behavior, and that you lose some of the sexy and the flirting and the, stuff that is part of life, right?
Yes, my darling. God, I'm so glad I don't work in an office environment in this day and age.